This is about to be one of my first videos where I actually took some time out and wrote something and did some preparation for the video. Because this is one of those things where the title is about to be clickbait as fuck. I already understand that, right? But part of the reason for that is, like, in this society, there's a lot of things that people have an issue with. But the issue that they have is not really with those things being bad in and of themselves, but with their lack of understanding of it. So, like, let's say it's clout chase culture. We're in a day and age where attention is the currency. So people desiring attention or desiring eyes to be on their things is not something that is inherently wrong. That's what you need to do, right? If all you do is present your information in a bland way where you just go through a long ass dissertation with no title that suggests that someone should actually want to listen to it, then what'll happen is only the people who already understand what you're talking about are going to listen, and they probably already understand all of your cue points, so they're probably still not going to listen. They may just look at it and give it a like or be like, oh, they got all the information that they needed from the video just within the title without actually delving into it. So, another thing I'm going to express is this as well. How a lot of masculine red pill men, how we tend to communicate at times comes off as abrasive. It can hurt a woman or a person's ego if they're feminine or if they don't have a proper balance within their energies, because when it comes to how a man expresses himself, it may come off as aggressive because he will say something, leave it exactly at that, not go too deep into communicating or explaining it, because in his mind he knows that there are certain sacrifices that he's willing to make if someone is submissive to his point of view, and because he understands that, he doesn't want to give that to someone who is only doing it because they hear or they already know the benefits that are come on the back end, right? So a man would just say something, he'll say it clear, he'll say it plain, and he'll say it in a way that may trigger a response that will create a certain level of a person feeling offended. Because, here's another aspect of it. A woman who is very submissive with you, you can say something that may trigger a certain response. It'll cause a certain level of being polarizing. And when that happens, if a woman is very submissive with you, that will do nothing but turn her on even more sexually and cause her to be even more submissive with you than if a woman is really low-key coming at you from a perspective of her masculine energy and needing you to explain every aspect of every single thing that you do to her, because she's trying to give you cooperation. She's trying to make a logical decision about whether or not she's going to cooperate, and that doesn't come from a place of submission. That comes from a place of her being in her own masculine energy. And you trying to explain those things and over communicate is you taking a feminine emotional standpoint of not respecting her boundaries and trying to push that information on her when she's not open to it. Now, there's ways of going about this, and that's what I'm going to explain in this. And I think this is going to be something that's going to help a lot of people. But the point of view is this. This video is called The Psychology Behind Demoting Your Woman and Why It Can Save Your Relationship. So my biology first approach is for both men and women. I don't teach something different for each gender because I understand the importance of sexual polarity and the masculine-feminine dynamics within a relationship. The blur pill is for the purpose of making oneself attractive for the outcome that one desires, as well as learning to intrinsically desire to give what the other party wants and needs from us in a way that doesn't lower our value in their minds. Men and women's egos are attached differently, which leads to a tug of war and the lie of the gender war, but also stifles our abilities to create deeper connections that have the ability to last. An issue that I have with most dating coaches is that when they teach things to women, they are doing them a disservice by giving them the tools to manipulate and control weak men, causing them to lose attraction and respect for that particular man, further exacerbating Madonna whore complexes that both men and women possess. Compatibility works on a basis of energies and circumstances that complement, but also our egos and internalized definitions of both masculinity and femininity. This is important. This is why. Because a man can love and respect a woman who is submissive with him because his internalized definitions of femininity are to see a submissive woman as high value, while the same can't be said about most women's internalized definitions of masculinity. So Madonna whore complexes that are encouraged by society at large teach people to separate sex from emotions indefinitely or immediately, and by doing so create this dichotomy where women are taught to be more logical and to maintain control over relationships through the leveraging of sexual access and validation, while men leverage their non-sexual access and validation with women. The issue with this is that it creates a transactional mindset when it comes to dating and puts people in positions where they will not trust the validation and access that they receive from the opposite sex, and that it will cause them to be unable to continue the effort that they put in to get what they want after they have secured their partner. Men often fall off with the effort that they put in emotionally and socially after a woman gives them full sexual access, and women finally feel that they have a chance to catch a breather after receiving non-sexual access because they were using either sex or the lack thereof to trigger the other person's ego to give commitment or emotional investment on the basis that the man believes in his mind that the woman is not that sexual of a person, which is not true in most instances, or that no other woman desires him on the sexual level that she does. And either one of these are instances that will trigger a man's ego to believe that he likes a woman or is more compatible with her than he really is. Right? And both of those instances will create a certain level of a lack of emotional discipline that will cause a woman to lack the ability to want to submit to that man because she doesn't trust his motivations and his ego, even though she played a part in it. But it's, as a man, you have to take responsibility for yourself. See, this breather that is taken often comes from not dealing with an individual from a place of intrinsic desire. That outpouring of effort and energy into a person is something that is done often from a place of not receiving adequate reciprocation, but trusting the person when they say that they just need more time or effort in order to be ready to take things to the next level, without having an actual plan that can be set forth in order to reach those goals. So it's just, you're shooting in the dark, you're investing, and you don't know where things are going to come up. And after a while, you just feel the need to start trying to pressure the person for what you want because you never understood exactly how things were going to work. So there are two angles by which to approach this type of dichotomy in order to integrate the situation. Either a man can legitimately not worry about sex and invest time in a woman from a place of intrinsically enjoying her non-sexual company, which can work, but often comes off as submitting to a woman's social programming, both limiting a woman's ability to be her full sexual self, but also causes a woman who isn't integrated to either appreciate the lack of sexual aggression of a man and grow attached to the validation, with no guarantee that sexual chemistry will be present, and allowing a woman who is not sexually integrated to simply soak up validation and attention of a man for the goal of boosting her own ego and self-esteem so that she can monkey branch to a man who is more masculine, either needing a man who is only sexually attracted to her, that she's only sexually attracted to for her sexual shadow because it's repressed, or causing a woman to feel her ego is triggered by a man liking her without pressing the topic of sex and deciding to initiate the sexual relationship herself, which comes from a place of desiring validation, limiting her ability to fully be present and receive pleasure in those encounters. Now, how this can go left is if a woman is having sex with you from a place of desiring validation and not from a place of desiring pleasure, then you're limiting your ability to have sexual power. So what will happen here is, a woman won't trust when you finally decide to invest in her emotionally because she thinks you're doing it for the sex, right? And not only will this happen, but if you decide that you want to take things with her to the next level, if she feels that internally that she doesn't deserve it because her self-esteem is already low, then she is going to start to pull back on you or to try to leave you alone. So the other method is what I call the biology first approach, where a man takes a masculine role of being honest and upfront about his sexual intentions, establishing sexual chemistry, and integrating non-sexual things into the situation at his own pace, while observing a woman's level of submissiveness and sexual desire with that man and being logical about the pace that he sets. A wise man once told me that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, which is true, and those with forethought will take that sound advice, but for most people, they will not even be aware of this issue until they find themselves in a relationship where they feel unfulfilled after adhering to societal narratives about what relationships are and what they should be based on. Sex isn't everything, but it is foundational, right? A woman should not be forced to be in her logical energy, to be in her masculine energy. Her nature is to be emotional, so approach her in a way that would create a natural desire to be submissive and a natural desire for her to want to sleep with you, instead of trying to buy her cooperation or sexual access and then getting upset when you did all that society or even her told you that you needed to do and being hurt by that lack of reciprocation, right? Because that will come off as entitlement. Although you're doing what someone said you needed to do to get it, that's not really what it is. So even if you did everything they said, it's still going to feel as if you're entitled if you start to become passive aggressive and upset with them that you aren't getting what you wanted out of the situation. When a man understands the cues of sexual desire and submissiveness and the cues that suggest the lack thereof, he is presented with some choices. Some men will silence the internal voice telling them that the situation is not right and just turn a blind eye to subtle disrespect. Some men will get more emotional and try to over communicate, or some men will get more emotional and get upset with the woman, attempting to check her when she's not even on his program. Some will become emotionally and maybe even physically abusive, trying to dominate that woman without her being receptive to that energy, because his ego is hurt by her lack of submissiveness and her lack of natural desire to want to follow that man. And some men will manipulate a woman's ego to gain more consistent sexual access and cause her to fear losing him and thus give him bot cooperation. But the strategy that I'm talking about in this particular video is to demote that woman to a fuck buddy, establish or reestablish intrinsic sexual desire and your sexual power, to show emotional discipline by not investing emotionally beyond that woman's level of submissiveness and sexual integration, and showing that you can lead by setting the pace of those interactions. Receiving less validation and understanding why will cause a woman to understand how she has been spoiled and cause her to appreciate how she used to be treated. But the masculinity within the strategy will cause her to grow in her respect for you and her sexual desire for you. Pulling back emotionally will give that woman who isn't sexually integrated the opportunity to experience a man for who he is sexually, without the pressure of feeling like those emotions are lowering her attraction because of her internalized definitions of masculinity, and without feeling that that man is only investing emotionally as an underhanded ploy to gain sexual access, making the sex feel transactional and lowering her ability to do it from an intrinsic place. It will also cause a woman to begin to value the guidance that he has to give her, because it is one of the primary things that a man has to offer a woman. If you have nothing to teach her, you have nothing to offer her. By him not going out of his way to try and over communicate when her energy isn't submissive, the woman will have space to see where the things that he says are accurate and well thought out. And because he created a natural desire for submissiveness within her, she will be much more inclined to listen to understand, instead of that logic from an emotional place causing her to feel like she is being pushed into her masculine energy and thus shutting down during the conversation. It will also expose the truth behind whether or not sexual desire is actually there and sexual attraction. See, as a man, you must understand that a woman can be attracted to you both emotionally and physically, and that can cause an emotional attachment, and that can even cause a romantic attachment, but that can happen without that woman ever truly being sexually attracted to you. A woman in that situation is sexually repressed for dealing with you from that mindset in the first place. And with sexual repression comes the sexual shadow, just like Jungian psychology. If you do not have the ability to be toxic and to speak to a woman's sexual shadow to trigger a response, then your relationship is destined for irreconcilable differences when you reach a fork in the road and what is ahead is unseen, and you lack the ability to make love and make up and trigger her sexual attachment and desire for you to get on your program long enough to do what you're saying and see the benefits of it, and confirm to herself that you are a man worth following. If you can't speak to a woman's sexual shadow, you will be unable to help her become sexually integrated. And if you are already dating, then you are subject to at least 3 different outcomes. One being that she will get bored and leave you because the quote-unquote spark is gone and she is quote-unquote just not happy anymore. Another where she will come into contact with a hyper-masculine, hypersexual man who will become her dom and either cause her to disrespect you and leave you, or she will encounter a man who will open her up sexually, and you may reap the benefits but never truly be the dominant man in the situation. It's kind of like Caesar from The Dog Whisperer, right? And women are not pets. Women are grown women, right? But I say bitch, I do, right? It's because it's polarizing. There's certain things that come with that, a psychology behind it, that I'm not going to break down too much in this particular video, but it is what it is, right? But it's like Caesar from The Dog Whisperer. He can come over to your house, train your dog for you, tell you some tips and some tricks that you can do to get that dog to be submissive in certain situations, and then he'll leave. The difference here is that a woman is not an animal. A woman is a human being, and there's no guarantee that that man will stay gone. So I remember hearing stories of doms and finding myself in that same position at times, where the man who speaks to a woman's sexual shadow and possesses masculinity would have the ability to open a woman up sexually, then tell that woman to go back and treat her man better. But the catch with this is that taking the easy way out is that that man may always have a key to the pussy. This is kind of like Lil Wayne with Corinne Steffens and how she was married. When she was married, she'd get out of bed with her husband at 2 a.m. to go spend several days with Lil Wayne with no warning. So don't see a woman not being sexually integrated before you get to her as necessarily a bad thing. Just take responsibility for the part you played in setting up a foundation built for failure and clean up what you messed up. I will also say to make sure that you yourself are sexually integrated, so that when that woman shows that high level of sexual desire and submissiveness, that you are not pulling back further or mistreating her or soaking up all that validation, see what I did there, just to give you enough self-esteem to monkey branch to a higher value woman, unless you both already decided that this is a short-term situation and she also has the freedom to do the same. This leads to a situation where a woman may become scarred and bitter and go out of her way to destroy whatever it is that you are building, or go give some of that let that hurt go pussy to the next person, capitalizing on all the things that you've invested in her, and she'll become sexually opened up by that individual, and then by becoming integrated by someone else, that will make you a cuck if you are emotionally invested in her. Women attract women by showing integrity. Don't be a simple bitch, right? Women attract women. So understanding that you can still attract other women, that's not the issue, but don't be a simple bitch. Reward the behavior that you like to see, and you will encourage that behavior in perpetuity. These are the ways that demoting a woman you love can help save your relationship. So I hope, guys will listen to this and they will understand that oftentimes when you're dealing with a woman and she's showing a lack of submissiveness or lack of desire, or let's say you catch her texting other dudes, not saying you're going through her phone, because that's kind of feminine, be going through her phone, but let's say you catch her like she's trying to position herself for male validation, or like you catch her in certain situations that are compromising, or she embarrasses you publicly in different ways. When these situations come about, it's best to demote that woman. You demote her for the purpose of reestablishing or establishing that sexual chemistry, and by reestablishing the opportunity for you to show that you can lead, right? And to move things in a direction that you want to. Because oftentimes women get spoiled. When women meet a man who has boyfriend energy, she may get spoiled by that to the point where she is unable to see that man for the full sexual being that he is, just like he can't see her for the full sexual being that she is. So when you demote a woman, you're really creating an opportunity to start over and reestablish the situation, right? So this is the psychology behind demoting your woman and why it can help save your relationship.